this is true, then consciousness is the basis of all material reality rather than something being general.
I've never felt this much of resonance. I mean, I'm talking word for word, bar for bar on this perspective. And I also come from the background of consciousness being fundamental, space-time being, consciousness giving rise to space-time, and then in that space-time there's matter, and then through the evolution of 3D matter, you have the brain, etc. So I also see the brain as filtering the field of consciousness rather than consciousness being emergent from the brain. What I would also like to say is I have a TikTok on how consciousness likes to know about itself. So we see consciousness as emergent. What I'm saying is consciousness is fundamental. It's an awareness. Awareness is really fundamental. Self-awareness is what's emergent. And self-awareness is kind of cool because the more you're kind of trending towards that way, the cosmos, it likes to create. And one of the biggest questions in cosmology is, why do large-scale systems end up being self-organizing in reaching homeostasis? And I think of efficiency, and I think, well, wow, when you're saving time and you've created a system that's like, there's a galaxy, and now that galaxy is going to continue moving, and it's going to evolve, and, you know, all these systems are set up. It's because it allows consciousness to continue creating. And it's so efficient and intelligent that it creates other things that are conscious that can gain self-awareness and also create. So it's a meta level of creation that's always happening. And I want us to hold on to this because I'm going to use this later so I can guide us into some things that seem really off the wall, but maybe we can work together to kind of talk about some ideas. And also I'd like to talk about timescape cosmology. Let me know if I'm misrepresenting it here. But basically it discusses how time behaves differently in particular walls or voids of the universe. And that makes sense to me, how things can happen really quickly and slowly based on different dimensions. And this is where I want to insert the system of Lokas, or dimensions from Hindu cosmology. The way I see it is that there is an inversely proportional relationship with consciousness and density. So the higher the consciousness frequency, the lower the density. So it feels etheric, imaginative, and the opposite of that would look like the lowest frequency of consciousness, but the highest density. So if I was thinking in literal material reality realms, that would be the spectrum of heaven to hell realms. And I also believe it's both and, that you have heaven and hell states of consciousness in your mind. Now let's bring it down to scale so I can relate, and then we can expand up again. Your mindset. If your mindset is good, you'll have a good or bad outcome, right? And depending on that, you'll keep feeding in that belief and acting on it. So if it can happen at that scale, then imagine what you can think of with being beyond human, right? In this life, death, all that kind of stuff, consciousness continuing on, and based on how it reaches in its state of its dimension it's in, how it can travel, you know, and all that. And also, experience is data. Experience is data. And the day the scientific community recognizes this is when it will really, really accelerate. However, I do see that there's this discrepancy of meritocracy. I did see a comment of someone saying in this post, why is it just you? Why not to everyone? You have to be open to it. You must be open to it. Think the Polar Express story where it was like only the people who believed in magic from kids until adulthood could hear that jingle bells still ring on Christmas, right? That's a lot of deep cosmic truths are all actually in children's films. So this data, it takes on so much complexity. What do I mean when I say data? Data of just anything we can observe in the world around us. It's true. The branch of science came from natural philosophy. So philosophy is the root, and based on that heart-centered vision with philosophy, we build a structure around it, a branch of study. Imagine what we could do together if we all could bet on consciousness being fundamental and develop tools and technologies to grow society based off of that. When we ignore this type of data, we can't be surprised when it kind of goes left, and we have no way to solve it because we don't account for it being valuable. As soon as something becomes too complex, we start seeing it as just emotions or thoughts we're making up in the mind. So in Hindu mythology, you will see a lot of deities, right? The way I see it is some data is so complex that it can't be explained with math and science today because it follows linear reality. Some things are so complex that they take on consciousness. That's actually kind of the basis of integrated information systems theory. There is the level of integration within a system, the integration of information within a system is linked to the consciousness, the intelligence that kind of comes from it. I too also have a story of being 16 years old and making a promise to the cosmos when I wasn't able to get the cosign signature for, a loan for college to pursue astrophysics. I remember looking up at the moon and the stars and saying, this isn't over. One day I'm going to study you and I'm going to know everything about you because I love you, and love means not giving up. And then also at age 25, I had quit my way out of my software engineering job at Microsoft and decided to pursue independent cosmology and consciousness research. So I felt like I kind of closed that loop there. And that was the sense I was getting too of, I had already been entertaining spirituality, first being atheist, and then kind of keeping an open mind due to personal reasons. But this is the time it actually felt embodied. Something to consider. So if we're talking about consciousness outside of linear space-time, first we must acknowledge that experiential data as we see it is data, and that we're only able to experience reality one dose of experience of consciousness in a unit of time at a time. It's a lot. If we were building a video game, let's say, with us as characters and then the foreground image, and then we input smells and then touch and taste. This is complex data adding up, and we can only handle so much. I would argue that if we wanted sort of like an escape velocity from 3D, we would have to achieve a state of timelessness, and timelessness is best achieved through dharma. Dharma is Sanskrit for, your soul's purpose. And a lot of people confuse that with like one career, when really dharma is a frequency of your consciousness. And once you kind of hit that realm, it feels like you're able to access all versions of you across space-time because you hit the core code or pattern of who you are and aligned with it. If cosmic data, observed data, any kind of data, once it reaches a particular complexity, if there is a consciousness that comes as a result of it, why are we not looking at those or things that have consciousness, which is everything, but why don't we see that as legitimate data to honor the cosmos? Instead of looking for this unifying theory of everything, we should be looking for the same something that's in everything. Where I feel the biggest connection to math, because I'm not really sure about all the equations and how and when they break, but what I feel the most resonance with is the universe not only trends towards homeostasis and efficiency so that it can continue creating more, but it does so by means of symmetry. It likes things being in alignment. And so I guess that's why synchronicities sort of occur. The more in alignment you are, the more you will get reality speaking to you a particular way. And I guess this is also why people say there is a lag in the 3D. So in Tantra, vibration precedes manifestation. So if you're thinking about something, of course, it's not going to instantly appear. I do think it's time that we open up this conversation and we start building a new reality or innovating and creating discussions, looking at industries and disciplines that exist today and either entirely rebuilding them or correcting them based on our understanding that consciousness is fundamental. I do feel that we expect the cosmos to dumb themselves down, but this is like a 50-50. It's a very love-based relationship from what I'm understanding and directly experiencing. So like with any romantic relationship, you also need to step up and be your 100%. So do what you can to expand your consciousness, and you will also be able to receive more forms of cosmic data, especially in stillness. In stillness is where the answers of the universe are revealed. Also, experience is another way consciousness likes to manifest itself. So sometimes we think of just material reality, but consciousness, so it's like awareness, consciousness, and then experience once consciousness kind of reveals itself within something that is material. If consciousness is fundamental in all dimensions, then wouldn't consciousness in other dimensions also create things that are conscious that could also create indicating that there could be other beings